Hi everybody, so I posted a video earlier talking about how I've read a couple of books over the past 3 months and I just had not been posting about it. I've split up how I want to go about this. There are 3 books that are going to get individual reviews because I really enjoyed them or I found them extremely interesting. Meanwhile, the other group, I'm just going to go through and do a quick review of each one and you guys let me know your thoughts and feelings. Okay, so the first one on deck is going to be First Ladies. This is by Mary Benedict and Victoria Christopher Murray. This book is about Eleanor Roosevelt and Mary McLeod, who was a activist for her time. It was very interesting. Each chapter was written by one of the 2 authors and it switches perspective from chapter to chapter. It was very interesting to read because a lot of the times when I think about Eleanor Roosevelt or her husband's presidency, I think about World War II or I think about the Depression, things like that. I don't really think about the race relations at the time. This book is all about that. Eleanor Roosevelt was a huge civil rights activist, although I don't know if civil rights activist is the right term considering this was pre the civil rights movement. Basically the book is from kind of 1920s all the way through 1940s, so excuse me if that's not the correct term, but it's all about her helping fight for more rights of the African American community. Great book. Both of the characters are really lovable and interesting and are great role models, and I loved this book. It was also a very quick read. It wasn't too complicated or difficult to read. I got through it relatively quick. Again, I just have the book jacket right now. My mom is borrowing the actual physical copy that I have. The next book that we have is The Stranger in the Lifeboat by Mitch Albom. I have read, I don't know, like 6 or 7 of his other books. I think I've read just about everything. Tuesdays with Morrie, the 5 People You Meet in Heaven, The Next 5 People You Meet, all of them, I think, for the most part. This one was good. It was not as good as some of the others. Basically, people are stranded at sea after a boat explodes. It's like a luxury mega yacht that has all of the most powerful rich people in the world on it, and they're trying to have a summit to kind of bring all of these, whether they're wealthy or they're geniuses or they're leaders in their field, they're trying to have a summit, have them all come together. To what ends, I'm not really sure, maybe just to have a good time, but the boat explodes and there's just a handful of people who are left in a lifeboat floating at sea, and God shows up. They claim that they are God. Nobody wants to believe them. They're asking for God to help them. He says he's not going to help them unless they believe in him, but they don't want to believe in him because he won't help them. So it's a little bit of a struggle. It was very good. Again, not as good as some of the other ones, but all of his books are really well written. They're all very interesting. You get the backstory of each character on the boat, which is kind of typical for Mitch Albom. Again, not as good as some of his other stuff, but definitely if you are a fan of his work, pick it up because it's not bad by any stretch of the imagination. It is very good. Just, I don't know, I had high expectations after some of the other things that I've read from him. The next book on deck is Have I Told You This Already by Lauren Graham. If you do or don't know who Lauren Graham is, she is an actress. She is very well known for her role in Gilmore Girls. It's a very popular series. She wrote a book couple years ago called Talking as Fast as I Can, and it's just a bunch of kind of short, I don't know if they're short stories because they're not fiction, but short passages about things that she's been through, whether in the industry or through her different some of the stories are about her growing up and how she kind of has an interesting childhood. That book was extremely good, and it's very much written in her personality and in her tone. I feel like this as an audiobook would be amazing. Either one of them would be great because she just has a very interesting sense of humor. She's very entertaining. And basically as you're reading it, you can just sort of hear it in her voice. This book was a lot smaller than the previous one. Also, one of the things that I thought was interesting, I am a fan of Gilmore Girls. I did love that series, so that was one of the things that originally made me pick up the first book that she wrote, or the first one of hers that I read. And that book is written after the original series wrapped, but before we got A Year in the Life. This book is written after A Year in the Life, so it's kind of interesting to see the juxtaposition of when she's saying, the series is over, it didn't end the way that it was supposed to or that I would have liked it, and if we were to come back together, it would be such an interesting experience to do that. And then this is she did get to have the whole gang get back together and finish the series how it was intended. So kind of her being able to reflect on that was very interesting. So if you are a fan of her work, it was a good one. And the other one was also good as well. So I would almost recommend you read the other one instead, because it is very, very good. Okay, next up, Immortals, Table for Two. This one was very good. I read a number of his other works. I think I have Lincoln Highway sitting on a shelf. I have not read it yet, but I've read Rules of Civility, and I've read Gentleman in Moscow. Very good. I love his writing style. He has this way of writing very detail-oriented, I guess is the term, in a way that if other authors did it, it could be boring, but for some reason it's not boring when he does it. It's very, very good. What's interesting is a lot of his works are very dense and very thick and kind of tend to take a while. So if you were interested in reading some of his work, but you don't want to have the undertaking of a 600-700 page book, this is the ticket for you, because this is a collection of short stories. So it's kind of a good way for you to enjoy this author and get to know him if you are somebody who can't do the longer books. What's also interesting is a big chunk of this book is kind of looking back on one of his characters that was in Rules of Civility, which I read a very long time ago, but I did not remember anything about it. Some of the things that happen in this book kind of jogged my memory, but even if you have not read Rules of Civility, you can still read this and be okay, because I didn't remember any of it and I still enjoyed it. It can completely be a standalone story by itself. You don't have to read Rules of Civility in order to read this. So that was very good. I enjoyed it a lot. Now, this book was upsetting. This book was annoying. This book was infuriating at times. So the best thing I can compare this to is another book that also left me feeling the same way, and that was The Lost Apothecary. The premise of this book, the idea of this book could have been so amazing and had me so excited to read it, and then it did not deliver. I don't know if I set the bar too high, I don't know if I got too jazzed about the idea of it, but it just let me down. So basically the premise of this book, as far as I understood it, or what I was kind of accepting or looking forward to, was that there is a girl who loves true crime. One of her coworkers who works at a bookstore with her gets murdered or goes missing or what have you, and she's kind of trying to figure out what happened. Maybe I interpreted it wrong, I'm not sure, but that's not what it was. It was these two different characters. They both work at a bookstore. One's named Roach, the other one, trying to remember what her name is, Laura. Roach is this kind of grungy, gothic, creepy girl. I don't think she's meant to be likable, which is fine. You don't have to like all of the characters in the book, but she's meant to be very unlikable, I believe. And she is just kind of becomes obsessed with this Laura character, and Laura is also a very unlikable, messy character who just kind of makes things worse for herself. So neither of them are enjoyable. They both do stupid things that don't make any sense. I don't know. It just wasn't what I thought it was going to be, and I kind of had to force myself to finish it, which I tried to do but don't always do. I don't know, it was okay. It just wasn't what I was expecting. I thought it was going to be much more into the true crimey aspect of it, and it wasn't. I don't know, like the girl claims that she's obsessed with true crime, and then Laura's mother was actually killed by a well-known serial killer, so like they're butting heads because Roach is a super fan and wants to know things, but Laura thinks that true crime is disgusting and terrible, so she hates her. I don't know, I didn't like it. I had a hard time getting into it, and it just wasn't what I thought it was going to be. So that was the only one that I really didn't like. Everything else I liked in that stack. In the past 3 months, I really enjoyed all these books. And I'm going to do a review on the other 3 that I have that were read during my little interim. So if you've read any of these books, let me know your thoughts, your feelings. Am I crazy? Am I wrong? Just let me know. Or if you've read any of the future books I'm reading. And the next one that I'm going to read, hold on, I have all these different piles everywhere. The next one I'm going to read is 14 Days, which is going to be interesting because it's written by a bunch of different authors. It's a giant group project, so to speak. I'm excited to read that. But yeah, let me know what you think. If you read The First Ladies, Death of a Bookseller, Table for Two, have I told you this already, or Stranger in a Lifeboat, let me know. Let me know what you thought about it. Let me know if I'm crazy or if I'm wrong. All right, I will see you guys later.